All right, welcome everyone to another episode of This is Cinema, MMA Fighting's movie podcast that puts the spotlight on films that feature the martial arts, preferably the mixing of. I am your host, Alexander Cayley. As always, I am joined by two top shelf cinephiles. Now, before I introduce them, guys, in homage to some of the over-the-top introductions that we saw in today's film, the name of which I will reveal shortly, allow me to get a little over the top here. So, in this corner, we have the master of the hot take, the man whose opinions never shake, a man about town who never backs down, the man who puts the hot in Hotlanta. It's Jed Meshew.
I want to say, one, I love the never backs down shout out in that. Mm-hmm. And two, always. I'm just really happy that you didn't get like super pejorative, I guess is the best way to phrase that.
It could have been
kept it clean.
So much worse. Yes, we have to, relative to the content that we'll be covering.
Yeah. So you didn't speak to Dante Basco's work in this film, but I liked it nonetheless.
And in this corner, a dash of mustache, the master of production with a penchant for destruction. Ladies and gentlemen, he must be sent from heaven, Mr. 10-7, EKC Live.
You're so good at this, AK.
Thank you.
That's pretty solid.
Again, I was inspired by
pinball.
The aforementioned Dante Basco as Pinball, yes. All right, guys, if you don't know by now, we are covering the film Blood and Bone. Quick synopsis here. Michael J. White stars as Isaiah Bone. You really just called Bone in the film. He's a hard
dude. How did you know his name was Isaiah? Because it is never mentioned in the
credits. They said his. They never said his first name.
No,
okay,
they do not say. They do not say in the movie. He's an ex-con with some incredible martial arts talents that he puts to use on the LA underground fighting scene. But there's more to meet the eye with Bone's quest, and he eventually runs afoul of the dastardly James, a wannabe kingpin played by a delightful Eamon Walker. So, Jed, before we dive in deep, give me your elevator pitch for the 2009 action film Blood and Bone.
Okay, so you know how sometimes when you like Xerox something over and over again, you can still see the outline of it, but it's like it's faded, it's not there. Blood and Bone is like the 80th Xerox of 90s martial arts movie that is itself the Xerox of an 80s martial arts movie. It's awesome. Honestly, I had a great time. It's got some issues, but we'll get into that. But tight 90 minutes, and you know exactly what you're getting when you get into a film called Blood and Bone is one of the characters' names.
Yeah, to say it has some issues is, I think, to put it nicely, but also I think to say that it was a brisk watch is also not an exaggeration at all. I I had a decent time of it. Not to give my review so far ahead. Casey, what was your first impression of Blood and Bone?
So this is our third episode. So we've done Roadhouse,
yes,
Fight Valley, and
Love
Blood and Bone.
Three very different films.
Yeah.
Very.
I don't know if this was the worst film or the best film of the three. I really don't know because
I do.
But you know what? The runtime ruled. 90 minutes was its best part. The perfect runtime. And Los Angeles and the underground fight scene. My big question, I had to get this out. Is MMA like regulated, government regulated MMA? Does it exist in this universe?
Unclear.
Okay. The whole time I kept thinking, why isn't Bone just a professional fighter?
I would say that it does, though. I would say it exists because, and if you're one, I don't believe in spoiler alerts for a movie that came out 15 years ago.
Yeah, let people know now. Here come all the spoilers. Here they come.
Yeah, here come all the spoilers. But there is that one scene when he is talking to Eamon Walker, and Walker's like, the biggest game, like the real money made in fighting is made in the underground fight circuit, which suggests that there is other money to be made, not in underground fight circuits. So thus that would suggest that MMA is in fact part of the Blood and Bone universe.
Sure. We do see glimpses of an actual cage fight as well. I think
Mhm.
sort of during that section you're talking about, there's some TV screens behind, and we see this guy
Oh,
Price,
you're right. You're right.
one of the big bats. But that doesn't mean it's sanctioned. We just do see a cage. But that's the closest we
Correct.
come to seeing like a caged fight in this universe. Otherwise, it's a lot of crowds standing around and people beating each other up, which is quite delightful. But yeah, it's a fair question.
Casey, what happens here is Bone rightfully recognizes that the UFC doesn't pay very well, and he can get paid more in the fast-paced world of underground fighting.
He's not wrong.
This film's so subversive.
It is.
And it's hating on the UFC.
Oh, way before it became cool to do so. By the way, this was 2009 when everyone was all like, "UFC's the greatest," and then this film was already like, "Oh, is it though?" We're on that. Look into it.
So wait. So is this film really about fighter pay?
Could be.
Oh,
it could be.
I mean, this film, Casey, this film is about multitudes, right? There are many themes about this film.
Yes.
Many highbrow ideas at work here.
Some class warfare, some racial tensions,
the American penal system. I mean, there's a lot going on here. That Michael Jai White and the director's name is like Bruce something. Who is it? Ben Ramsey.
Let me get to that because this may answer your question a bit, Casey. Perhaps the talents behind it will let you know what their intent was. So the director of the film, as Jed just said, Ben Ramsey, who also wrote The Big Hit. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, the Mark Wahlberg Hitman movie. And later Dragon Ball Evolution, which was not well received, widely regarded as one of the worst adaptations.
That was a big year for him, though. He had Dragon Ball Evolution and Blood and Bone in the same year.
Was the same year?
Yeah, so 9.
Way to go, Ben. Wow, Ben was on. He thought he was on an F train that was never going to stop, and he was wrong. Stopped real quick. I don't think he's directed a mainstream movie since. And the writer is Michael Andrews, who hasn't been quite as prolific. I believe his next project after Blood and Bone, was a documentary called The Legend of 420. So, it's a hell of a creative team. And of course,
that's so fitting to this film.
He's a free thinker, man. Again, this goes to what Casey may have suggested, that there's more to this movie than meets the eye. There's some subversive commentary being made here. Like
a transformer, there's more than meets the eye.
Of course. And I want to shout out, of course, the fight coordinators as well. Fernando Chen and Sam Hargrave. Jed, you would recognize Chen, of course, as one of Hobbs's crew in Fast Five, the gentleman he had like a mohawk, I think. Mm-hmm. And Hargrave is very famous. He's actually done the stunt coordination for several Marvel Cinematic Universe films, and the director of Netflix's Extraction films, if you've seen those, which I saw the first
quality films.
So there's some, and I don't want to go over all the credits, but if anyone skims the IMDb, there's actually quite a bit of talent involved in the making of this movie.
This was a movie. Unlike Fight Valley, which was shot on some iPhone 2s.
It's a student film.
This was a real movie. I will say that. This I don't know what that really means, but it felt like a real movie, just not a real script. But it was a real movie. So I don't know what that means.
There's some choices made with the cinematography. I admit. Let's recap real quick.
This is a more composed and actually built film than certainly either of the films we have discussed. This is a much better rounded out film than Roadhouse is.
Yeah, and in different way. I realized. Listen, I gave Fight Valley a fist last week. I was the lone fist. I acknowledge this. I had maybe forgotten what a normal just action film looks like. It's not a, like you said, student project like Fight Valley, and it's not this weird studio mishmash monstrosity that was Roadhouse. This is just an honest, pretty tightly put together action film. So, to that, is it an MMA movie though, guys? Would you classify it as an MMA movie? What belt do you give this film?
Oh, the belt.
I'm gonna go blue.
Jed, go ahead.
I'm gonna go blue belt. Probably no stripes on that belt. Maybe one. You've been training for a year. You know a couple of things, but you're still well off from getting your purple. But you know enough to think you know more than you do. There's certainly MMA elements at work here, right? A couple of the casting choices. Bob Sapp plays a prominent role. Gina Carano is also involved. Kimbo, big role, though Kimbo's MMA credentials at that point in time are also you know, where they were at. And then you get, you know, you get some moves that would occur in an MMA fight. And particularly when you like give this time, like where the time was, right? In 2009, this is when you started to see that sort of thing just filter out into all action films across Hollywood, right? Instead of just being Jason Bourne, quick cuts, you know, fast, punchy stuff, you start to get to see some bits of grappling involved, some, you know, moves that maybe aren't, I don't know, productive in an MMA fight, but stuff that you can at least see the hallmarks. And to that point, you know, Jean LaBelle was involved in this film, had a cameo in it. And so like there's some undertones of realness happening here. So blue belt, and it's not a white. It was honestly less MMA than I thought it was going to be from the like quick, you know, the synopsis read.
Okay, I'll tell you now. I went a little bit higher. Casey, I want to know where you went because there was some mixing.
I'm gonna give I would give this a solid 2-stripe purple belt. Basically, the only thing I was missing was an actual literal cage, but it seemed to be just open mat, unsanctioned MMA. Like they're basically a smoker to the death. You know, I think
no one fights in Tim's in smokers.
Well, this was pre-2010 LA. You don't know. It was different back then. There was a sleeveless tap out shirt, so I'll go.
There was some tap out stuff in there.
There's a bunch of tap out stuff. Bob Sapp is drinking from something when he's getting injected with steroids that is tap out. I couldn't tell if that's supposed to be like a tap out energy drink or like a tap out Gatorade or tap out whiskey because it's kind of a flask.
I wrote down whiskey. That was my
because it's in like a flask.
I thought it was whiskey.
And I gotta say, Tap Out needs to make a whiskey. Like I don't know why they haven't gotten involved in the whiskey game.
Yeah.
I set a precedent by giving. Oh, sorry, Casey. Were you?
But I was saying in the actual fighting, while there was a bit of an overuse of the roundhouse, but.
Not enough.
What do you mean? What do you mean, Casey? What do you mean?
There was a lot of spinny kicks in this film, but I thought in the actual fight scenes, I thought there was more actual MMA. Maybe not mixing of it, but they did different. Went from jiu-jitsu, a little bit of wrestling, a lot of spinning. I thought there was more mixing of the martial arts than Fight Valley, for sure.
Probably, and so
Fight Valley was just all about the lumpy bumpy, you know.
Yeah.
Watch out for the lumpy bumpy. I gave Fight Valley a pretty generous fighting score. I think I awarded a brown belt, and rather than revise that, I have to use that as a precedent. So I will give Blood and Bone a brown belt as well, with like 3 stripes. What's too many stripes? What's too many stripes before you're just like getting to the next belt?
4.
Is there
I think 4.
What's 4? Oh, you know what? Then I'll go 2.
It's kind of like Monopoly when you get like 4 houses, but you have a hotel. Yeah, it's kind of
I'll go 2 stripe brown belt because again, I similar to Fight Valley, the plot is driven forward by fighting. The characters are fighting to achieve a goal or to get to a certain opponent, certain nemesis to pull or to execute their plan. So fighting is important. Again, as we sort of said at the beginning, it's not really sanctioned professional fighting. And also, as we said, the fighting is kind of an entertaining mishmash of, yes, there's some MMA in there, but also some traditional kind of kung fu action film stuff. Some, Jed, you said 80s, 90s, push hands, 80s, 90s, high flying.
It's a lot of kung fu taekwondo.
Yeah, a lot of that in there, which again is a martial art, but perhaps not the MMA.
So it's a martial art that Michael Jai White has like 8 black belts in or whatever. So a lot of that.
He is. I'm just going to say it right now. He is fantastic. Is that an overstatement?
Are you speaking in this film or as a person?
I don't know him as a person, but in this film, he is impressive. Like physically, obviously the martial arts. He's a decorated martial artist and action star. He is something.
Spawn.
He is something to watch. Yeah, he was Spawn. He was Spawn.
I enjoy watching his films.
Yes.
I don't think that this is his best work.
Okay.
But he's certainly not bad in this film.
His character, unfortunately, so I'm only talking about the action. Really, his character, unfortunately, is a little Jake Gyllenhaal-y, like just kind of blank slate, cool guy. There's not much to.
Bone does
much
not
to his
have
personality.
any depth or interesting hooks other than the fact that he kicks people in Tim's, which is awesome.
I'm just gonna ask now because I don't have a section for this. Why are his clothes so baggy?
Because he wants
Why?
to. You got to have freedom of movement. AK.
Isn't that the opposite?
He's got a lot of muscles. No, baggy clothes are much better to move in.
But the fabric was light. If it wasn't baggy and heavy fabric, it was a light flowy.
Why do you
fabric.
think I'm wearing this shirt, AK? Because it's.
Yeah.
This is something Michael Jai White would be fighting in. It's linen. It's terrific for flow. It's great.
I'm not a Street Fighter, so I guess I wouldn't know.
Did James's the bad guy? Did his suit look like it came from like about 10 years before the film was made? It looked like a very late 90s.
This
or
early 2000s. You know, like that.
Okay.
It maybe was a little earlier than I would have associated with 09. But not like that far off the time because the bigger suits were certainly late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Just go watch any of the NBA drafts from the years.
Yes.
That's. I knew it reminded me of something. Like Kevin Garnett when he got drafted. I felt like I saw him in that suit that James was wearing in the movie.
But you know what? It's fitting for his character because the character of James, our main antagonist, is like kind of a wannabe. He wants to be part of the elite. He wants to be part of the criminal elite, and he's not there. He's kind of a pretender. He's got this philosophy that he supposedly sticks to, but he really doesn't.
And the philosophy is don't curse? Is that the philosophy?
Don't curse, like don't drink, don't
In his defense, they do right around that where that he doesn't have the philosophy yet. He's trying to add it in. He says it's like, I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it.
I don't hesitate to say he is the best character we've seen in the 3 movies we've watched.
Dude, let's talk about it because Eamon Walker, I watched this movie and was like, why is he not in more things? Why is he not doing more things in mainstream films? Because like it's like a touch overacting, but it's the overacting that comes from being like a theater guy, which he is. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's just a little bit more performative because you have to when you're on stage versus in front of a camera. But it still is a performance that captivates you. It's like, yes, you should have more roles in stuff. I thought this when you were in Lord of War, and I thought this watching Blood Moon. I was like, why are you not just like the mid-heavy in a Marvel show on Disney Plus or something? Like you could very easily be doing that and be very quality at that role. And instead, I think he's just kind of working in theater in London or something. Like I don't really know what he's doing, but he should be on my screen more often.
Shout outs to also the supporting man here, Dante Basco as Kimbo, the foul-mouthed, street-smart sidekick of Michael Jai White. Many will know Dante, of course, as Rufio from the Hook films. Also, disagree. No, even more, Jed will know him as the voice of Sokka from the Avatar cartoon. So he is way more known for that than he is as.
You don't know his face though as a voice.
It doesn't matter.
I didn't know he was Sokka. I didn't know he was Sokka.
And thank goodness, because I do not want this character being associated with either Rufio or Sokka, frankly. His language would not be appropriate for Hook nor Avatar.
I disagree with this, AK. This is a stance I've long had about films, right?
Okay.
Sometimes you got to know who you are. And God love Dante Basco. For an anime, that's something totally different. For a movie like this, like if I was writing this film and I had written it and here's the script, and if I'm the director or whatever, I'm like, we're going to cast Dante Basco to do this. And I think he does fine the role. We can talk about the complications of what that might mean for modern day sensibilities. But I would be like, all right, we're going to rename this character because there's no reason for him to be named Pinball. We should just name him Rufio because why not?
No.
There's no reason not to just lean into that. Dude, like the dude Hector in Training Day. Oh man, I gotta find that actor's name. I think his actual name is Hector, and in like 30 movies, his character name is Hector because they just lean into it.
It's not true. That's a meme. He's not.
I mean, his
I'm just saying he has only played Hector like 7 or 8 times, not the 30 times.
Okay, yeah. Sorry,
I'm just saying
7 or 8 is still like a lot but they get it.
Like
it's just how it's like in John Wick after they made the first one where Stahelski was like, all right, you know what we're gonna do? Fishburne's coming in the second, and people are gonna lose their minds when Fishburne's there. It's like, get this man a gun. It's just, you gotta give the crowd little stupid idiot bones like that, and just naming him Rufio would not have detracted from the plot. Nice. Would not have detracted from the plot at all, and it would just be way better if instead of being named Pinball, his name was Rufio.
I think you want to distance him from that child film classic, and also possibly litigious. Let's be honest. I don't know if they would get away with that.
You definitely name him Rufio.
Because I remember that. I remember that scene in Hook where, you know, he's talking to Peter Pan. He goes, all right, MFers and MFer.
Yes.
Are we allowed to curse yet? Are we allowed to say bad words yet?
I think we're okay. and then use a bunch of homophobic jabs to describe the rest of the Lost Boys. Yeah, that is a distinct. That's a core memory for me. We'll get to more of Dante Basco. We should shout out some of the other performances and stars featured in this. We got Bob Sapp as Hammerman. Actually gets decent billing too. I think he's like the 4th name, because some of the other fighters and like action people kind of get also featuring, as like Gina Carano and Kimbo. Bob Sapp gets his own. Bob Sapp gets his own title card. Again, no stranger to the world of entertainment, television, film. He's pretty good. A great physical presence. He's straight up Bob Sapping it up. The scene where he's taking PEDs, a little on the nose. I am a little surprised he embraced it so fully.
And tap out whiskey.
And then he eventually
Bob Sapp does great.
He does.
Yeah, Bob Sapp.
Use Bob Sapp better. Like at this point, maybe he's a little old. He still has the physicality. It's just like there was like a moment where they were plugging Bob Sapp into roles like this. He's in The Longest Yard and stuff. It's just like, Bob Sapp is great to be like the min heavy, where, you know, the guy that the hero gets over on. He's perfect. He's perfect for it. Can do it. Kimbo did the same. I thought they were both quite good in fulfilling their roles.
Kimbo's great. Yeah.
Well,
Kimbo's terrific.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry we took so long to mention it, because Kimbo is the first face we see in this movie. It's immediate Kimbo, because I remember when I first heard about this film, I was like, I wonder how much Kimbo's in it. And while it is definitely a small role, it's kind of 3 small scenes that he's in. He is the first face you see leading a gang of ne'er-do-well prisoners to try and shank Michael J. White in prison. And instead, sadly, Kimbo is the one who gets shanked. So,
but Kimbo gets his revenge in the end.
We don't.
Well,
I'm going to say we can all retcon our viewing experience and not include the credit scene.
He does also get there is also a scene in the middle of the film where he is used by the main villain to kill Bone's friend.
Danny.
Danny, correct, Danny. And sweet Danny, his wife taken by the main bad guy, his child relegated to foster care or some sort of independent child care home. Spoilers, guys, sorry, because it doesn't get revealed until like an hour in the film. Bone's quest to become a top fighter is to get to James, to avenge poor Danny, who he befriended in prison. So it's quite a plot.
Not really. His quest is less to get to James. His quest is more to get to Danny's wife and kid. But then then the James thing happens because James can't let stuff go. I feel like Bone would have just walked away, you know?
Mm-hmm. I suppose, yeah.
Any other performances jump out at you guys? Either actors and their fighting or fighters and their acting? Anything else worth of note? Because we do have plenty of fight scenes to break down, so I do want to get to that, because there's a lot of fighting in this movie. A lot of fighting.
I will just say I actually enjoyed Dante Basco.
Yes.
You know, if you could have changed a lot of his lines, that would be better, given modern sensibilities. I mean, honestly, even in 2009, some of the stuff he said probably wouldn't have been like that kosher. No. But he still brought the exact sort of energy you're supposed to bring to that role. And it was just nice to be like, oh, Rufio's still out here cooking. Good for you, getting that paycheck, baby.
Yeah, he's the perfect guy.
Card up to date.
He's the perfect guy to host a Fast and Furious style street gathering. That's kind of the energy we kind of get there. We got a little bit of bootleg Fast and Furious thing when we first see the first set of street fights. People are doing capoeira.
Can you explain to me how he's not in the Fast and Furious movies?
I don't know.
It just feels like how he just didn't show up somewhere in them is baffling to me.
There's still plenty of time. Dante Basco is out there. He works a lot, but I'm sure he can make time for the Fast and Furious. And then in our first real fight, a street fight, we see a character played by Ernest the Cat Miller, a pro wrestling veteran Ernest the Cat Miller, fighting former UFC heavyweight champion Maurice Smith, who is credited as Fast Hands. Ernest the Cat Miller is wearing overalls and hair rollers, or it's a wig with hair rollers.
Are we talking about the character Mommy Dearest?
We're talking about Mommy Dearest, yes.
That is, in fact, the character we're talking about.
Who was introduced, and I don't want to give away the best quotes of the movie just yet, but we really can't talk about Mommy Dearest without talking about his introduction. And again, this goes with
this guy was a pro wrestler?
This guy was he's a martial artist, and then also, but a long-time pro wrestler. So Dante Basco gives some pretty colorful introductions to some of these fighters. And I will read some of the names he uses for the cat. Not all of them, because I cannot. He calls him, and this explains, guys, why I guess Ernest Miller's wearing a wig with hair rollers in it. He calls him the homicidal homosexual, the queer that inspires fear, and this is really borderline, the butt-battling bandit. So
that one's not borderline. That one's just not acceptable.
It's not good, guys. It's not good. So that's a little taste of some of the dialogue in this film. And then the cat wins his fight. He actually breaks Maurice Smith's arm.
I can't. Is the queer that inspires fear awesome, or is it bad? Like I don't know. I want to text some family members and figure out like where that line is, because if that's acceptable to say, that's kind of a banging nickname, right? Like if you're owning that, I don't know. I don't know the line.
I don't think you'll be hearing that at a pro
Let's talk about this fight scene. We're talking about is this an MMA movie?
Yes, good.
This first fight scene, you have Maurice Smith, a decorated kickboxer, and what happens? He faces Mommy Dearest, uses that terrific fireman's carry, throws him over, some sort of weird arm bar, and breaks his arm. Wrestling and submission wrestling works against a kickboxer. This is an MMA movie, so we immediately get that.
The physics of the arm bars in this film are not functional. There's a couple of arm snaps that just like there aren't the leverage points to actually pull that off, and that's one of them. But yes, the fireman's carry, gets him to the ground, and Maurice Smith couldn't hang.
Yeah, I just rewatched it.
Mark Coleman had that level of fireman's carry. UFC history would be entirely different,
Yep.
Oh man. Yes. The first arm breaking we see, one of several. You're right. It's not quite an arm bar. He almost just like ripped. It's like it looks like he's just trying to rip the dude's arm off. It's comically fake. I mean, a big credit to Maurice Smith. Sells it like a champion, a UFC champion, one might say. So we have our first street fight. So we can get into the fights now, guys. I'm a little curious. Casey, you tell me first. There's some good ones in here. Which fight jumped out at you? What fight do you want to talk about first?
Ooh,
there's a right answer.
You go first, Jed. You go first.
Okay, Jed, go ahead.
I do want to shout out the opening fight scene with Kimbo. It's just like it's not really an MMA scene almost at all, but it is just that's a perfect hook scene. Like, here's the film that you're about to watch. It was great, great, well done. As soon as that happened, I'd already seen that one a couple of times before, just on YouTube clips, doing Kimbo stuff. But I was like, I didn't realize this was the kickoff of the movie. Perfect. We're set here. For my money, the best fight scene is the roller rink fight scene. I don't actually know if it's a roller rink, but it's just like a hardwood floor. Yeah. That they're fighting, and some dude who I don't know, I didn't look up to figure out who that man is, but it's like the most competitive one. It's the one that ultimately sets up Michael Jai White's bone, getting bloodied and bruised. And so then when he goes home to the boarding house he's staying at, I don't know what that character's name is.
Tamara.
Tamara. Nona Gay is like, oh, what happened to you? And then they can connect. So it sets that up. But that was just like the most interesting fight. That was also the fight that had, I think, the most sort of MMA level of moves and stuff happening there. Michael Jai White at one point goes for an inside heel hook, doesn't have control over the hip. So homeboy just steps through it. You gotta Come on, you know that's how you know he's not a jiu-jitsu black belt. Michael Jai White is black belt in like 18 different karates. Man didn't a jiu-jitsu black belt because he didn't have the leg. He didn't have that leg reap. It was just open in the wind there, man. Step through. We get into the scarf position. There's some grappling exchanges. I thought that was both the most dynamic fight from a viewing perspective, and also just like the one that most speaks to our MMA sensibilities.
Was that the one? Did he win by rear naked choke? Is that the one?
No, I think Kimura. He did like Kimura or something.
Kimura. Yeah,
some
exactly.
sort of funky.
Kimura wrote that. Yeah,
and he finishes it like appropriately, where he gets up. Okay. He's got the full position. It's dude on his side and the arm going back, and he rips it. Yeah, I think it's the most MMA fight pretty clearly, and I also just thought it was the best fight.
Actually, you're right. That's what I was looking at. I was trying to figure out that one because I remember I was like, oh, the scarf. I was like, oh, they actually have some catch wrestling in this too. I was like, this is the most. Yeah, this is about it of all the movies we've seen so far. This was the most MMA fight scene.
Easily.
Yeah.
I think easily. I mean, other than Jay Hiron, obviously that was the UFC. So
Yes.
But that was just punch. But that was just that was an MMA fight. But this actually had all the elements of MMA. That's all I'm saying.
Look, but as AK knows, you can't mix the martial arts. It's bad to do so.
It's keep the martial arts apart, I say. But yeah, I had in that noted here as well. I called him dance hall guy, but yeah, maybe it was a roller rink. And yeah, I just said I thought it was such a sick fight. It looked good. It was the end of a montage. So there's like we get that montage where him and Pinball are cleaning up on the streets, making money, and that's sort of the one that caps it off. And like, at the end of that montage and that dance hall or roller rink fight, I was like, I'm kind of having a good time watching this movie. Like, this is like,
yeah.
Were you like Pinball, and would you have professed your love to Bone?
I thought at the end of the movie, spoilers, when it's all said and done, and Bone is the lonesome hero walking off into the sunset. He kind of turns back for a second. I thought he was going to say, by the way, Pinball, I love you too, man. But that's 2009 wasn't ready for that. I think 2009.
Yeah, this movie also had a big anti-drug, like don't smoke the marijuana.
Yes,
because he pulled the joint and threw it out the window. I'm like, what are you doing, man?
Look, Michael Jai White is for the children.
This is Los Angeles. You don't do that.
Don't smoke the wacky tobacco. It's gonna make you randomly say "I love you" to a dude. Gross. I agree. I think that was a standout fight. It's a shame. That's like the one character I could not really get their name or figure out who the actor was. So shout outs to that actor. Maybe it was one of the stunt. Maybe it was the stunt coordinator. I don't know. But it was very good. But yeah, a lot of the fights are pretty short. Michael Jai White's whole gimmick early on is like he's able to instantly sort of assess sort of the person's technique and then adjust his own stance and then one shot, just boom, just crack people. But I thought that was cool. I like that they had him.
I didn't realize the influence this film had on Sherlock Holmes, the movie, where Robert Downey Jr. slows down time and then assesses what's happening. It's like, all right, if I shift my stance, he will then try to kick me in the ribs, at which point I will kill him. It's like, good. A game of shadows owes its lineage to you, Michael Jai White.
His very first fight, he sees a guy just kicking pads for like 2 seconds, and he's like, I know. And you can see him like, I'm shifting to like a Muay Thai counter stance or something where I can block his kicks. Not that it matters because he doesn't even let the guy get a shot off. I think he just like boots him.
Oh, you didn't get it. He's not shifting to where he can block his kick. He specifically, so he's here and he specifically opens up the rib. He specifically shifts his stance so his arm is no longer here and it's up here, leaving this big gap open for the dude who was just firing right roundhouses into Thai pads to go, okay, I can kick him right here, at which point, as soon as he goes for it, Michael Jai White hits him with the kick.
Wow. There are levels to this movie. Like
the
martial arts scenes are thought out and planned and well executed. So I liked that stuff. I like the one shot. We got a few one shots.
While we're talking about the best fight scene, were we all disappointed with the final fight scene with Price?
No, it's really good. It's just not an MMA. It's just not it's not a quote unquote real.
Well, this is supposed to be the boss. The boss. I know. The final boss, I guess.
It's tough that he has an easier time with that dude than Pool Hall dude. Pool Hall dude was also the most competitive fight, and this is supposed to be allegedly widely considered the best pound for pound murder fighter in the world. And he
killed 4 people. They said,
But Casey, you want to know the thing that bothered me the most? Is that fight, when that fight's getting set up, he's in the suit and they're like, hey, you want to go change? He's like, no need. I got this. And I was like, oh, he's about to lapel choke him or something. He's got like, now we can use the thing and we can get some jujitsu stuff going on here, can tie him up with the suit like it's a gi. And then that is not at all what happened. In fact, he used no grips provided by the suit jacket, and it was just full on karate. I was like, oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah. This final fight is fun to watch, but it is more of a traditional 80s, 90s martial arts movie type scene where, it's very showy, it's very flashy. It's not really how any human beings would actually fight in real life. So it's entertaining in its own way, but not far. It's not CineMMA is what I'm saying.
Did you notice how that final fight scene, how very pro wrestling it was with the whole, like, let's do a thing, and then we kind of stare at each other and walk around? Yeah. I think they did that like 4 or 5 times.
They're starting to assess each other's abilities. Yeah. Like, I do think it's actually a huge weak point of the film that the final fight scene should be, even though it honestly hadn't been built up the whole, like, hadn't been like there's a huge foundation for why this fight scene needs to be epic. Still, at some point in the movie, you needed to see Bone not just walk through everybody. Like, he did not face any real resistance at any point in time. And so that really muted any stakes possible for, like, Eamon Walker has a sword now. Like, yeah, he's definitely about to get killed. Like, he's definitely about to lose because we have seen no weaknesses. And they didn't even give us, like, in Gladiator. You guys remember in Gladiator when Joaquin Phoenix gets the perfunctory sword fighting? No, but, like, at the beginning of the movie, you get to see Joaquin Phoenix fighting dudes. So you at least know, he can kind of sword fight. We didn't even get that with Eamon Walker. It's just like, okay, he's going to get murdered. Right now, there's no drama to what's occurring at this moment. The final fight scene left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, I was a little worried. I will say I was a little worried for a moment that we were going to get the almost what happened with Fight Valley, the swap out, like he wasn't going to fight Price, because Price literally kind of just popped up.
Well, that kind of did happen. That kind of did happen because he didn't.
A little bit.
He didn't.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not going to fight him, and I'm like, oh no. Oh, and then you're right.
No. When he had the knee bar and he had the opportunity to basically break Price's leg, and then he chooses to tap out.
Could have never finished that knee bar from that position.
I'm saying knee bar because I don't know what it was. He was holding a leg.
I mean, it's a knee bar. I think it's a knee bar, but there was no leverage to finish that whatsoever.
I compared it to Ariane Lipski breaking Luina Carolina's leg, but that's probably doing a disservice to Lipski's very.
His hips aren't even like in. It's like the legs out here fully away from. No chance he's finishing that.
I like how it played out. I like the I'm tapping out because so screw this guy, screw James. He's not winning money off of me, and then he gets to fight. You kind of got both. He fights the main bad guy, but he also gets to fight the hyped muscle. So that kind of worked out for me, but. Jed, you raised a good point. One flaw of this movie is Bone is never really in danger. Mm-mm. The one scene where James takes the nanny hostage, Tamara takes her hostage, and I'm like, oh no, he's gonna take her with him and now force Bone to fight. But he kind of just goes like, damn you, Bone, and just lets her go and leaves. And I'm like, oh, okay, nothing can go wrong. Nothing can go wrong for Bone. Bone is cruising. Bone's having a good time.
There are Marvel films where it is more believable that the main character is in trouble than in this film, which is I don't know. Captain America can literally never be in trouble. He's not going to die. And yet somehow Bone is more impervious than Captain America was. It is easily the biggest flaw in this film outside of super questionable writing by modern standards and probably by 2000 standards too.
Yeah. Even Jake Gyllenhaal in Roadhouse, he gets beaten up a little bit. He gets stabbed. His friends get affected. His friends, the little girl and her dad, their place gets burnt down. There's consequences to the actions. This one, they're a step ahead of the villains all the time. They go to the hospital. They're a step ahead of the villains who go to the hospital to try and kill this is so complicated for people who haven't seen the movie. Really, what are you doing listening to us if you haven't seen the movie? But so going to kill his friend's wife, who he has put in rehab so that she can eventually reunite with her child. And then the villains think they're so smart. They're going to. This is where Jean LaBelle pops up, by the way. There's an old man who I did not recognize at first. An old man sitting in a chair, and someone backhands him and knocks him unconscious. Yes, and that is Jean LaBelle's cameo.
The reason is to have Jean LaBelle in the film.
There you go. Couldn't he have I don't know, just
you could have just been an old dude in the consortium.
Why did he get knocked out? Yeah, why was because the other consortium guys were well-known martial arts people. So anyway, that was strange. Maybe he wanted to be. I don't know, but just they were the only time they could fit him in. And then yes, of course, Pinball and Bone are waiting for them. And so there's really no point. There's a little Dom Toretto in there. There's a little Dom Toretto. I'm always prepared. I'm never in trouble.
But at least Dom like bleeds occasionally. Even the one time where ostensibly Bone bleeds, he actually isn't bleeding. There's just blood on his shirt, and that blood could easily be the dude he fought.
Yeah.
It's just like he has the greatest plot armor of all time, and it's pretty. It's a huge weakness. Huge weakness.
Just to break down some of the other fights real quick, he fights a guy called Gold Tooth, who you guys may recognize him. That's Tenoy Reed. He is The Rock's stunt double. So if you've seen a Rock movie, you have seen Gold Tooth in action. Also, coincidentally, he was on American Gladiators, the 2008 reboot with Gina Carano. So there you go. There's a little Gina Carano also in the film as Veretta Vendetta. But yes, Bone beats up Gold Tooth, then beats up multiple people, 2 versus 1, I think 3 versus 1, then just pretty much anyone they can throw at him. Jed, no strategy here from the goons. All coming at it one at a time, not using the formula popularized by Fight Circus asymmetrical champions, bank and no money. That was kind of disappointing to see.
When they came 2 at a time, then Bone would throw a spin kick and knock out both of them with 1 kick.
Yeah.
So,
Casey, you're correct. Fair. But you are leaving out the single best move in this whole film, which occurs during this fight sequence. And it's because on top of doing the spin kicks, Casey, which is very much in the roundhouse and wheel kicking oeuvre, he's also a big fan of the split kicks. You get up and you kick, one leg, 2 leg. And then in Tim's, again, I can't stress enough that all of these fights happen while this man rocking Timberlands, which is the best part. He does a quad or a double split kick where in the air he goes kick to 4 people before landing.
You're right.
And it's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I was like, that's outrageous. And almost certainly by the time the 4th dude's getting kicked, he doesn't even feel it. Like there's no force behind it, but who cares? That was awesome.
That guy's like, that's so cool. Boom. He gets knocked out by the coolness of the kick. He's just falling
down out of respect for the fact that it was dope that this man hit a quad kick and Tim's on him.
I have to drop. This is the part where I fall down. After he beats those guys, he rips a stack of cash, which some gang leader was hiding in his crotch for some reason. So that was a bit funny. And he also gets Gina Carano's number. There's a nice little scene there.
Hey.
And I also want to shout one more thing. The Bones fight with Bob Sapp, I actually really liked. Not very fast. Hammerman steroids seem to do nothing. I thought after he got knocked down, I thought it's like,
I don't think steroids are an instant reaction boost. It's not like Bane serum where you just put it in and you get bigger and stronger.
But that's why I thought it was more like a revitalizing juice or something. I thought like, oh, he's not actually out and he's going to spring back up like in a rage. And then
what is revitalizing juice? Again. What are you talking? Like, what is this? What is
secret juice? Secret juice.
Okay.
Way ahead of time.
Casey, can we talk about something that I think was very ahead of time? The final fight scene with all the, what do you call it? The consortium?
Yes, the consortium, yeah.
Which is, I guess, just millionaires from across the world who come to fight this private fight club or whatever.
They're the dudes from Squid Game. Also into underground fighting.
This was pre-UFC Apex, where only the richest could afford tickets. That's all we saw. We just saw Stipe versus DC in the Apex when it was in his final fight. Yeah, this is what we saw. It was the same exact thing. Bunch of millionaires and fighting and
probably billionaires.
Billionaires. Watching the 2 best street fighters in the world for like 15 people. This was the UFC Apex. Like the UFC Apex completely ripped their entire business model off the final scene of Blood and Bone. Mm-hmm.
Dana White and company saw the scene and said, these guys are onto something. We can't implement it yet. But the time will come where we can implement this.
We just need a worldwide health crisis first. Then we got it. Yeah.
There's no going back.
I also want to shout out Bob Sapp. We don't get enough of people getting mount position and going Donkey Kong as their weapon of choice.
Yes.
Just the Bob Sapp 2-fisted smash from mount position. Somebody's got to bring that into the cage. I need someone to do that at 301. It's such an effective maneuver.
What did you guys think of the sort of kind of gimmick of this film? One of their shot gimmicks was the first person. I guess it's first reverse point of view. You are the one getting smashed.
Yeah.
I think one of them was standing. I think when Bob Sapp was getting beaten up by Michael J. White, we got a little standing pummeling. But yes, generally that was sort of the trick. Gina Carano, yes, ground and pounding an opponent, and then we got the poor girl's view of her getting smashed. And no, Jed, you didn't like that?
I never like that sort of thing. There are very few times that I think any sort of a POV perspective is like warranted or adds to the film. It's just dissociating, and particularly because it always also looks bad because you can't have it. And pretty clearly, Gina Carano is not punching, like she's punching not to hit the camera, thus not to hit my eyeballs, like through the POV. It's like, oh, your punch is pretty clearly going in front of my face and not hitting anything. So that's not just this film. It's a lot of films that sort of do at least sprinkles of this, and every time it's bad to me.
What a buzzkill. Casey, you're a video guy. Didn't you not appreciate that?
It wasn't done that well. It wasn't done well. It can be done well. When I think of the movie Fight Club, and I think the scene where he's getting we all want to destroy something beautiful scene where he's beating up Jared Leto. I think from my memory, that's kind of a POV.
Does he ever actually go POV, or is it just like over the shoulder?
Maybe it's over. Maybe it's just my memory. It was bad, but I kind of remember that angle, and it felt much more visceral and violent in that movie. But no, that was Fight Club, and this is this. But it can be done well. Most of the time, it's not.
It also just doesn't make sense in the context of this, because if you are doing that, ostensibly the point is to be in the POV of your lead character. But this isn't like, this was just being, hey, you want to have a POV of this woman that Gina Carano is beating the soul out of, who we don't know her name and plays no part in the film. Like there's no reason to provide the audience that view other than you think it's cool. Like it's pretty 100% what it is, and it doesn't work for me. Like I'd at least understand it if it was, here's the POV of Bone getting his ass beat, and you can kind of emotionally connect to that trauma or whatever. It's not what's going on.
Oh, I can't. Well, Mr. Palm d'Or over here. Jeez Louise. Okay, fine. What did you say your favorite move was, Jed? I think you mentioned earlier. You like the
quad kick.
The quad kick.
The quad kick is the best thing that happened.
Okay. Yeah. The quad kick is the best move. I did like the transition into the knee bar that we discussed. He does like a pro wrestling victory roll, which I don't think is a real martial arts maneuver. I don't know. I've never had someone try it on me. Maybe it's super effective. But yeah, he essentially jumps in the air almost onto the guy's shoulders, rolls forward, and then into the ineffective knee bar, as you described it.
That is the best move in the film. The second best move is the very beginning of the film. Within the first minute is I'm fighting 5 guys in a prison restroom. The 5th guy, how do I stop him? I throw my wet T-shirt on his face.
I mean, that would disorient me as well.
The guy was like, "Whoa,
ew, wow, so wet,
ew, gross." Yeah. He's like, remember he took his shirt off, he got it wet, and he started doing the whole shirt thing, and then whipped some guy in the face, and then the other guy, he just throws it on his face. Yeah.
That's the thing. I thought the first time I ever watched this scene, I thought for sure he was just about to start rat-tailing people, just left, right, and center, just popping them with the wet thing.
Like a locker room.
Then he hits them once, throws the shirt, and then just obliterates everyone. I was like, okay, that's also effective. Also an effective fighting strategy.
Now, you guys have already asked, why is Bone just not fighting the UFC? And then we sort of posited maybe the UFC doesn't exist as we know it in this universe, but let's say it did. Or let's say Bone came to our universe. How's he doing, guys? How's he doing in the octagon?
I mean, his ability to make in-game adjustments is unparalleled. I mean, just the speed with which he was able to assess and then attack people. But I will say, I got concerns about his ground game. The one time some dude was actually rolling with him, wasn't just engaging in a Tai Chi, Taekwondo fight, dance hall, whatever that fight was, that was that was the hardest he had. He had the most difficulty when someone was out here trying to grapple with him. Granted, at heavyweight, which looking at Bone, I'm going to go ahead and say the man's not making the cut to 205. Not a ton of heavyweights.
He's short though, isn't he? I couldn't tell.
I don't know, but I don't think he's like that short, but he's also just yoked. So like Jeff Monson was short too. It's just the man is built. Look at the tree trunks on that fella. He's a big boy. big fella. Somebody like Curtis Blades, I think, going to give him real problems. But heavyweight's a weak division. He could do okay.
Who wins? Isaiah Bone versus Cyril Gane.
I mean, you got to go Bone, right?
Oh,
you got to go Bone.
Nah, I'm going Bone. So yeah, so I think that answers your question right there, AK. You would
think of the speed
he's a top
with
five.
which
He's a
this man
top
can
five,
kick.
top 5 fighter in the UFC in the heavyweight right now.
If you get rid of the Timberlands, think how fast he'll kick. You will never see speed like that in the heavyweight division.
But those Timberlands would give that last kick on the 4-person kick that enough weight to make it effective. You know,
he's going to have to adjust some of his fighting strategies, certainly, but I think he can adapt and be okay.
Michael Jai White is listed at 6'1", so he is not a short man. I take that back. He's a fairly tall, as you said.
What's his weight listed at? 260?
I don't
probably
know.
250, 245.
Who would even know? I wonder. Like, who keeps track of these things?
Just Google that.
The first result just says 235, so I'll just leave it at that. So yeah, it's a small heavyweight. But the speed, he got the speed, a lot of power. Man, he was
You guys ever watched Michael Jai White like pseudo instructionals? They're not instructional videos, but it's like him talking to other people about like his techniques. They are I can't tell if they're genius or if he's insane, but they are captivating watches regardless.
Okay. That's quite the endorsement.
So there's a really famous one of him working with Kimbo on this movie, like outside of it, and they're like in the fits that they are doing, like that scene but he's just talking with Kimbo about like timing functionally and how to punch things. Google it if I assume you haven't seen it, AK. Google
him and Kimbo?
Just like him and Kimbo, yeah, where he's like, all right, so Kimbo, try to hit I'm going to try and hit your hand. Don't let me punch your hand. And he like tries to punch it and Kimbo gets out of the way.
Okay,
and then he does like a really slow punch and Kimbo like just doesn't see it coming and gets caught. And he's explaining like how he set that up with like essentially distance control and stuff like that. And he's got like a number of other things. There's one with him out there doing like explaining kicks and how like, if you load a kick, then it's like much easier to see. But if instead the way you shift your weight is this way, then you only like your opponents are only going to recognize this as a threat at the last minute. It's going to be much easier to hit a front kick on them. He has a bunch of stuff like that. That's like real, Bruce Lee mysticism stuff that I kind of think is mostly hokey bullshit, but it also kind of works. Like it also kind of sells me because he's a charismatic man. And so I'm like, I could maybe buy that. So go watch some of it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I have to now. I believe those things would work for Bone specifically. I have him, guys. I'll give you my quick tier list here. You guys can agree, disagree. I have Bone clearly S tier, top of the. I also put Price S tier. I don't know if you guys were disappointed in his performance and if that bumps him down to just simply A tier.
I mean, he did look like a middle one.
I didn't see enough. He's a little smaller. I would say based on reputation, at least A tier, maybe S tier based on reputation. Yeah. But the in-cage product, maybe he had an off night, he wasn't ready for what was going on there. He's in a suit,
short notice.
Maybe you let him be in. But I didn't even love the training footage we saw of him. I wasn't that impressed.
You didn't like him bludgeoning that one guy with elbows over and over again for no reason.
I wasn't really impressed by the training footage. So I'm going to drop him to A, and A tier is strictly based on, I guess prior resume and reputation, not what I actually saw with my own eyes.
Who was holding his pads? Do you guys remember that? I'm sorry. I know the guy was holding his pads.
He's a road trainer. He is a road trainer. Yes. I haven't seen him in years, but around that time, it was an Asian fellow with a completely bald head.
Yeah.
I don't know his name, but when I saw his face, I was like, oh, I used to see that guy at UFCs all the time.
Yeah.
So, he is a coach. He is a real MMA coach.
Price, by the way, played by Matthew Mullen, not an actual fighter or an MMA fighter anyway, but yes, a veteran martial artist.
Wasn't he like a kickboxing dude?
I think
pretty sure that is true.
Hey guys,
he was Johnny Cage in one of the Mortal Kombats. That's what I recognize him from.
I remember the sort of made for YouTube one. Yes.
When are we going to talk about the Wang Chong scene?
Wang Chong scene.
All right.
I don't. Go. Sorry.
We'll get to that in a moment. Let me read my tier list real quick. That's a good tease, though, Casey. A tier. I think Hammerman's A tier. They talk some crap about him, but I think Hammerman's A tier. Mommy Dearest, I thought pretty impressive. The fireman's carry to the armbar. B tier, Veretta. That's Gina Carano. Fast Hands. That's Marie Smith. C tier. I put Kimbo in there. Kimbo is JC. I thought he took a stabbing and pretty tough. Pretty tough. I put him in there. Gold Teeth, also C tier. D tier, Big L. That's the first guy. That's the guy the T tricks into
disrespecting the name.
And
Big
L.
F
tier. Actually, this is perfect. We did not plan this. F tier. Yes, Casey. Daryl. Daryl, the unfortunate yuppie who gets murdered.
Daryl didn't know it was coming.
Daryl. So, all right, let's set the scene. Okay, so Casey is asking about this Wang Chong scene, which is soundtracked by the hit Dance Hall Days. And in it, our bad guy, James, is confronting, I think, a business partner who's effed up, who's like made a mistake or something. He's done something wrong. And he's clearly being sent there to eliminate this guy. And this guy does not see it coming. We get Wang Chong playing. And Daryl's instinct, he senses no danger. Instead, he says, oh, you guys don't mind? Like, oh, we're going to play some white boy music for them or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then James
asks for music to be played on as a noise cover for the ensuing murder.
Yes. And
Daryl's wife turns on Wang Chong.
And James is down with it. And he very much lowers Daryl's guard by singing along with him. He knows all the words. They're having a good time. But the atmosphere clearly gets very threatening. He pulls out his little blade out of his cane, I think, and then stabs Daryl to death. So, Casey, what did you want to say about this scene exactly?
In this universe, it seems very easy to get away with murder. That's all I'm.
Casey, I got some bad news for you. That's true in our universe as well.
Okay, they don't explain what happens to his wife, the Asian lady.
They pretty clearly killed her.
She either gets killed.
So they killed him. They killed her, and then James also, and his other Asian henchmen run over a random black lady in the alley and kill her too. Yep. Were there any other just random murders that weren't part of the street fighting scene? Oh, Roberto gets eaten by dogs. Apparently. Oh,
yes, terrible. The kindly old man Roberto, torn apart by pit bulls, I believe. Terrible.
So we were told we didn't get to see it on screen.
And thank goodness, did not need that.
The Wang Chong scene is interesting because it's objectively fun. I don't understand why it's in the film. It serves,
it made no sense.
Truly no purpose. I guess the purpose is to tell you that James is a bad person, but you kind of already intuited that by the fact that James allegedly set up some dude for murder to steal his wife and per pinball force his wife to get rid of their unborn child. It's not what ends up happening. But you're already like, yeah, okay, James is a bad dude. I don't need to see him kill somebody. And honestly, I felt that like after the end of the movie, I was like, I think one of my issues here is that Julian Sands, who is Franklin McVey, feels like he's actually supposed to be the heavy of this movie, but you never get to it. And so like, that scene lends towards, James is just a pawn of this other individual, and that's who is ultimately going to get their comeuppance. And then, no, it's actually just James, but there's some sort of depth to James's motivations as a middleman of evil. Yeah, it was just very weirdly set out in this regard.
He's a climber. No, but like I said, he's our best character we've seen so far in any of the movies.
Because they were going somewhere with James and Franklin McVey was like, because they had the whole race thing and how like,
wait, Casey, hold on, Casey. We got to explain this to people.
I'm not saying
it gets complicated. It gets a little complicated.
We can discuss this in a civil way. First, the last thing on the Wang Chong scene, I just want to say, this movie, according to Wikipedia, has a budget of about $3.7 million. That's a license, and maybe he's friends with people who know Wang Chong or something. But like to license that, I think that's the only big license song they have in the movie. It's had to cost them at least like $500,000 or something. Am I crazy? Like it's expensive to license.
Probably
music.
More than it would be, but
more.
I'm sure that was not cheap.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's
maybe it was on discount because that song seems so random. Maybe that was like Wang Chong's like, dude, give me $5,000. Like, yeah, take it. That's not like the Wang Chong song. That's like the other Wang Chong song. So I'm just saying they didn't get they got the semi deep cut.
It wasn't Everybody Have Fun Tonight.
Yeah, which might have been, which I bet was way more expensive.
That's what they asked for initially, and they said you can have that for $500,000, or you can have Dance Hall Days for $50,000. And they're like, wow.
I mean, I think Dance Hall Days works. I think it fits.
Yes. Let's talk about the other scene, which we thought this was building towards. Yes, James has to go see his buddy in the consortium, played by Julian Sands. R.I.P. By the way, Julian Sands just passed away last summer.
What?
You got to Google it. Very sad circumstances. Went hiking and just got caught by bad weather. Disappeared for months. What a fun thing to bring up during the podcast, by the way.
You killing me.
I mean, yeah, he's R.I.P. So we dedicate this podcast to the memory of Julian Sands. R.I.P. Yeah, he's great. He's great as Franklin McVey. And he has a bizarre exchange with James. James has to talk to Franklin because he wants Price. He wants Bone to fight Price and to get all the money that he feels he's earned. I think he's going to win like $5 million or something if Bone beats Price. And yes, they get into this weird racially oriented conversation, which threatens to turn into a literal we can just say dick measuring contest. Fortunately, the film stops there. We don't get to that. Yes, there are some treats.
This is a movie that employed Kimbo Slice. Just saying.
Kimbo Slice and Gina Carano and Bob Sapp are prominently featured in this film, which also includes this scene, which is
baby
so
nuts.
Weird.
baby nuts.
Yes.
That is functionally what happens in this scene, everyone.
I hope this scene is on YouTube isolated because I'm trying to explain it, but it really comes out of nowhere. And it's long too. This is not a short scene. This is like a substantial scene in the movie.
It doesn't make any sense in any part of it.
There's no call, but it never comes back. There's no.
It would make sense if McVey is the bad guy, the actual bad guy. It would make sense, but he's not. He's just a dude. But then you're like, oh, this dude is virulently racist, and I hate him. So it would be cool if he got his comeuppance.
No.
And then we just honestly, I was waiting for the post-credit scene is real bad and should not happen. When they started a post-credit scene, I was like, oh, they're gonna set up Blood and Bone 2, where Bone, comes back for Franklin McVey. And then that's not at all what happened in that scene. And so it's super weird. It's not a very well written film, is the point.
Listen, there could be a sequel where we get more of the consortium, more of a Franklin. I don't know. So I take it both of you would agree. You would have maybe either chopped this scene out or significantly chopped it down. Is this fair?
I would have rewritten this scene entirely. I just don't know what the aim, the goal of the scene was.
Have no idea.
That's really it.
Whatever the goal was, it didn't succeed.
Very strange.
If the goal is to make James a more a deeper character, because you see the things against which he is fighting, kind of failed in that by creating a character that you have animosity towards that there's no resolution to. I think a scene like this could have existed, but it just doesn't serve any purpose.
If anything, he even kind of gets a moment to help the hero at the end. He's the one who tells his other consortium member to throw Michael Jai White a sword at the end, so they can have a proper.
Which is also unnecessary. Just let Michael Jai White beat him with a sword. Not like he needed the sword.
He was at a disadvantage.
And that scene just resolves weird after James is like, baby nuts, Dada, you got baby nuts. Then Franklin's just like, all right, cool, I'll help you out now. Literally moments before, he said some of the most heinous racist stuff you've ever heard. It was like, my rich white friends do not want to hang out with you because we don't like you for who you are and the color of your skin. And then James is like, okay, but you got baby nuts. And he's like, all right, cool, we can be friends. I was like, what's happening here? What is occurring?
The problem, Jed, is anyone listening to
that's it. It sounds so. Yeah, you kind of know it, Jed. I mean,
that's
weird.
Is that not exactly what happened?
No, yes.
No, it was. It was just.
But here's the problem: the way you've broken it down. Anyone who has not seen the movie and is just listening to your recap of the scene is just nodding their head, like, "Yeah, that makes sense." Oh, okay, like that. Yeah, that's how the things turn around. He called them baby nuts and they won him over. Like, yeah, that's a human interaction. So you oversold it. I think you made it too convincing a little bit. James's appeal to Franklin.
I guess I don't know.
The only tweak I would have made was I mentioned a scene where Tamara is held hostage by James to get Bone to fight, and it kind of just resolves as nothing. I thought Tamara was going to use the Tai Chi skills that she had learned from Bone to like just to at least escape the situation. Because I thought he was gonna be like Tamara. I was gonna be like Tamara because she has James has a gun to her head.
Push against me.
Yeah, don't panic. Just remember, push and push back. Like what? And James like, what the hell? And then she does some weird, like very slow move that does just enough to throw James off balance, and then Bone jumps in and saves her. So one thing I would have added. That's it. Otherwise, I mean, a flawless film. So I don't know if there's any other tweets.
Do we need more Genghis Khan quotes?
That was great. Did you write it down? What was the Genghis Khan? It was good.
Oh, of course I wrote it down.
Oh, please read it out, Casey.
Do you not have it? Or do you want the whole thing or just the one that is the post-credit splash?
I think
because the one that's repeated is "I'm the punishment of God."
Yeah.
If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you.
That's pretty sick.
The one prior is James setting that up, saying Genghis once said, "The greatest pleasure is to vanquish your enemy and chase them before you, to rob them of their wealth, to have those dear to them bathed in tears." Yeah. Just so we are all the way clear, James says this to Bone in his house immediately before trying to befriend Bone, and then ultimately offering Bone his, I guess, wife. It's unclear what his relationship to the primary female lead is. Girlfriend who he was so enamored with that he set up her baby daddy and or husband for murder, and then stole her and banished her child.
Yeah.
And then is just giving her to Bone. Because
you're not giving her. He is using her. He is using her as currency. Because he's a horrible man. He's a horrible man.
My point is, it's not a really well-written film.
I just I
feel like that's a recurring theme.
Nothing you have.
There's not a lot of cogency or clear through lines in character development in this
James
film.
is real. James is real.
I do like Angela when Angela walks into that scene originally at the party, and James introduces Angela, and then Angela says, "Words can't describe how little I give a damn."
That was pretty good.
I was like,
yeah, that was a good.
But that's as deep as we got with her.
Thought it was the other word, the F word, but
it might have been. It might have been. Yeah.
Also, she's just really. I mean, she's not given anything to work with, but I'm also seeing a through line for female performances in these movies are not good.
Susie Selleck could have played that role and you wouldn't have lost a beat. That's all I'm saying.
I honestly, she was not that far off from Susie Selleck.
A little sad she wasn't available.
Starting to think that the people who write MMA related movies can't write female characters.
Oh, that's a little, wow. We'll find out soon enough. There's a little tease for upcoming episode. We started talking about quotes. I just want to jump a couple of quick ones in here. They quoted Genghis Khan. They also quote Sun Tzu, The Art of War. James goes, invincibility lies in defense. And Bone says, possibility of victory in the attack. So that was kind of a cool exchange, I thought.
That was my choice for best quote. It's because there's
really?
not like a lot of, there's not like a lot of good ones in this movie. There's no lumpy bumpy certainly going on in here. Whereas that's at least like, that feels like a thing that would happen in an 80s martial arts movie that is cool. So I was like, yeah, sure. Why not?
I also wrote down, we mentioned the insanely bizarre racist scene where they're about to measure their genitalia. And Franklin goes, let's whip them out and I'll settle that myth right here now, which I thought was a pretty powerful line. Again, this was before being called baby nuts, and that scene was resolved. And we teased this before, guys. What the hell was Dicks on the Wall? What is Dicks on the Wall? This is what Mommy Dearest. So Mommy Dearest, after breaking Maurice Smith's arm, shouts Dicks on the wall, Dicks on the wall. I was so lost. I was lost.
So I've never heard this, but because he just was repeatedly shouting it, and I was like, this is incredible. I then Urban Dictionary'd it because that's the go-to source for things. And Urban Dictionary says an exclamation of surprise or excitement, most often in a positive manner.
What?
I don't know from whence this stems.
When was this entry made? 2009, after this movie came out?
No, 2020.
Oh, it's
so this movie's ahead of its time.
It's definitely from its movie.
Well, I told you, this created the apex. This created Dicks on the Wall. This movie did a lot.
if I ever meet either the writer of the film or Ernest the Cat Miller himself, that's the very first thing I will ask. What the hell is Dicks on the Wall? I really thought I was
Exclamation of
missing
excitement, usually in a positive manner, AK.
It certainly was in this case. Casey, any other lines jump out at you besides Dicks on the Wall?
Did we already mention all right, motherfuckers and motherfuckettes? That was a great line.
I mean, you alluded to it previously.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great line by Pinball. Imagine if Bruce Buffer for the next pay-per-view just breaks that one out. It's like, all right, we're over. It's time now. All right, motherfucker. Yeah.
Dude, he wouldn't even say Jim fucking Miller. He's not going to do something cool like that. I actually do think the best line in the movie, low key, was from Tamara when she's like learning what Bones like actually doing. She's like, "You did all of this to keep a jailhouse promise." That's like actually a pretty good line. I like that line.
Yeah,
I wrote some other lines down.
Go ahead, Casey. Yeah.
Oh, you're my white knight to save me in the tower, and then Bone responds, "Well, I don't know about white knight."
I mean, that is the deep lineage of 80s action cinema right there. Casey, I thought you were going to go with the opening quote from Bone. I thought
I had that too. I want I want to tell every motherfucker behind these walls, if they get the notion to fuck of me, don't.
And it kicks Kimbo in the face.
Yeah. And then boom, the title scene. Yeah.
Good, and we should say,
dude, the opening scene does its job really well. The rest of the movie, maybe a little less so.
We say blood and bone, by the way, is not said in this film. The phrase blood and bone is not said in this film. We should make that clear. Just
wait,
not
I
like
did
Fight
write.
Valley where it's said like 9 million times.
Yeah, I did write this line down. I'm trying to figure out
the bone together.
Yeah, I don't know. Tell me when this was said in the movie. Don't you know I'm from Pittsburgh? We don't play that shit.
Oh, that's Bob Sapp when he's roughing up Pinball in the bar. When Bob Sapp's trying to find because he keeps repeating a line that I cannot say. He keeps asking Pinball, "Where's that man Bone?" Yeah. And I don't remember what exactly prompted it, but it's right before he throws Pinball across the room. He's like, "Oh, it's because he punches Pinball and Pinball vomits on his shoes." And then Bob Sapp says that.
And we should note that this ends with Bone saving Pinball and just straight up shooting Bob Sapp. So that is the end of Bob Sapp's character.
And showing a wealth of proficiency with firearms.
Oh, does not miss a shot. I
mean, just man could be in the Olympics.
All bullseyes. Swordsman, marksman, expert martial artist.
Just like John Wick, great shooter, misses a lot of shots. He is cycling through those weapons. Bone steals a gun and goes 9 for 9. That's just
John Wick could learn a lot from this guy. Yeah. All right, guys, let's get to our review. Let's wrap this up. I'll say it right now. I quite enjoyed the film, but I don't want to spoil exactly how many fists, if any, I've given it. Shall we do a little drum roll? And
oh man,
for the raising of the fists. Casey, you look unsure. You look like you had not already decided.
Oh man, I haven't decided on it.
Has our discussion made you enjoy the movie more or less?
Casey,
I think is the question.
Casey, I'll tell you, I'm with you. I did not decide on my review until we did it, and through our show and talking through it, I feel really confident with the grade I'm about to give.
Okay. How do you want to do this? Count this down?
Let's do each person. Let's go Jed first.
Okay, let's try. Oh,
we got to do the visual of all three of us so we know the totality of fists.
All right. Give me a count. Give me a countdown. Okay.
Let's go 3. So we go after 1. It's 3, 2, 1, go. All right.
Correct.
Ready. Our review of Blood and Bone. 3, 2, 1. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
3 fists.
Was this our first 3-fister?
So first 3-fister.
3-fister.
Wow.
And well deserved. If my ranking of I was the only one to give a fist to Fight Valley, if that was a borderline, that was like a shaky fist. This is a firm fist. I was maybe 45 minutes in, and I was already like, this movie, unless this movie completely goes off the rails, it's getting a fist. Very enjoyable.
I gotta say, I was planning no fist when I got here today, but after hearing you two gentlemen, it got a fist.
Yeah, the fight scenes are good. They're impactful. Like we said, this is like a real movie. I'd kind of forgotten what a real movie was after watching Roadhouse and Fight Valley. And I was like, oh, this is like a normal movie like you would catch on, again, well, it went direct to video, but you would catch it on cable. This could be a pilot for the Blood and Bone TV show. You know what I mean? It's just a nice, well done production. Like I said, people can go to the credits themselves. You'll see a lot of names that are involved in that went on or were previously involved with other like major Hollywood films. So there was work put in here, and I liked the mixture of martial artists that got in there. I think they used them well. No one got overexposed. Michael J. White again just carries so much of the film. He's such a great physical presence, and I can't take it quite to another level, as Jed has said many times during the show. The script is so bad, but that's okay because I'll tell you something. You guys didn't come here for
we didn't show up for the script. Yeah,
for the script. You came for some action. If you came just for action, 90 minutes, solid action, delivers and then some.
The 90 minutes is one of the really critical parts for me because everything you said, AK, I was debating between 2 versus 1, and I didn't feel like it quite deserved 2, but it felt like I gave 1 to Roadhouse. And I think that this is just a better film than Roadhouse in the totality because again, it has a lot of problems. Writing is the biggest one, but it does know what it is as a film. And I can give a lot of credence to any film that knows, like, I don't need everything to be an Oscar film. As long as you know what you are and you play to that, you play to those strengths. And this does. It lets Michael J. White do some cool stuff, keeps it tight. It doesn't sprawl. Honestly, you probably could hack. Like, this is probably better as a 1-hour pilot if you just took 25 minutes out of it, which I think you could pretty easily do, than it is like as a total standalone film. But even so, after the first 40 minutes, there's a stretch there where maybe it drags a touch, but it's not nearly as bad as some other stuff. And most importantly to me, it all is at least relatively cogent. It's driving towards something that makes sense as opposed to the sort of wide diaspora that was the back half of Roadhouse, where it was just sort of all things happening because like that is the reason for everything happening is we need more Connor in scenes or whatever it is. This at least has like a pretty clear path. I think there are a ton of things that I would not do if it were up to me, but this is also a film that sort of like Roadhouse ultimately I settled on. I didn't have a bad time watching it. It was 90 minutes. And if one of my friends who was asking like, hey, looking for something to watch, and I know that they are into a particular brand of trashy B-movie 90s action film, like, you could do worse. You'd absolutely do worse than watching this. So for me, easily the best of the 3 films we've reviewed thus far in this journey.
Man, now you're making me wonder if this was a stealth pilot or if this was really conceived as a pilot for a Blood and Bone show, which I would watch 100%. And then they just decided to turn it into a movie. And that's why we got like the James and like, that's why we got the James and Daryl scene and the James and Franklin scene. It's like, oh, we just need to add in more to make it feature length. And I'm like,
this could just be a good TV show. On the Rewatchable podcast, they do like sequel, prequel, premiere, prestige TV. Like if you're going to remake it, how would you do it? And I would be like, I would just turn this into weird TV show like on AMC Plus or whatever.
Casey, how do you want to justify your fist here?
Well, I came in here giving it no fist, but then Jed honestly did sell me on it, on just the ridiculousness of it. And I guess the film knowing what it is, but I gotta say, like, it still barely got a fist for me, mostly because I really just hated the way the film ended in the final fight scene. I thought the final fight scene with Price kind of sucked. And then it ended with a sword fight. And this is supposed to be an MMA movie. It ends with a sword fight. And the guy gets his hand chopped off. It was just kind of seemed like, I don't know, just wrist lock him. I don't know. Like, it felt out of place ending it with a sword fight. That's all. But it just goes back to the script. But the movie, there was something there. It was something. I think we all kind of sensed that, which I think we kind of ultimately gave it the fist. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I think
Walker
that's
alone deserves a fist.
Oh, Eamon Walker, well done. Veteran TV actor. You will see plenty of him. Listen, I think he's on a show right now. Isn't he on Chicago Fire or something? I think he's on TV regularly right now.
He's on every Chicago MD, Chicago 911, whatever, all those shows. He's doing well.
Syndication checks. Get those syndication checks. He's doing just fine.
He needs to be in more films doing this exact role. Just better.
He was great. I think he was wonderful in this movie. But guys, I think those are good breakdowns of this film. And I think as you pointed out, like kind of why this isn't a black belt martial arts film, because it strays so much. We got gunplay. We got, again, a sword fight is really the last fight. There's just a lot going on.
Yeah, into the sword fight. It was just odd. I was like, all right, yeah.
And again, shooting, like Bob Sapp gets killed by a gun. Like, it's kind of weird. So but I think we're all firm that this is a 3-fist movie, which, guys, it puts it
top
at the
of the
list
rankings.
of our rankings. This is the greatest martial arts film of all time. Number 1, Blood and Bone with 3 fists. Coming up close behind, Roadhouse with 2 fists. And again, just missing it, Fight Valley with 1 lonely fist. Thank you, guys. Thank you this week. Again, I really enjoyed watching Blood and Bone. I highly recommend this to people. I believe it is on Netflix in the United States. So people, if you got Canada, nefarious means, I'm just saying, or rent it, pay a couple of bucks, rent it at one of these streaming services.
It's like $3 on Amazon.
There you go. I think it's on YouTube too. I think YouTube, I'm pretty sure you can rent it on YouTube.
Great, yeah.
But if you're in the US, you don't need that. You got the flicks. Hey, turn it on. You could do a lot worse. Great action scenes. And
if you watch it on Netflix, then your Netflix algorithm is going to start kicking you a lot of really bad films, and you're going to enjoy that. At least
I noticed Never Back Down 2 is on American Netflix.
Sure is.
Not the original, but the sequel is.
They can't bring him back for the direct-to-DVD sequel, so Michael Jai White takes over the franchise. It's electric, boys. I can't wait.
Well, gentlemen, and the other good, speaking of the algorithm, it might actually put the film that we're watching next week onto the people's screens for them, because we are reviewing the Netflix produced Netflix original film starring Halle Berry and Valentina Shevchenko. Yes, we are reviewing Bruised. So we haven't had much luck with some of the female characters in this movie. Let's be honest. I think we'll do better with this flick. But guys, until then, thank you for joining us on This Is Cinema. Keep those 3D glasses handy. Keep that popcorn handy. And we will see you next time.
Love y'all.